Hello, everybody. This is Steve O'Reilly and Gail Saunders with Skinny Post TV at skinnypost.com. We're going to talk about the draft winners and losers in the 2012 NFL Draft. Now that it has concluded, we've had a little time to think about some of these picks over the weekend. We're going to go ahead and jump right in with our draft winners. Gail, who was the team's top three that you thought were the draft winners coming out of this weekend?
Well, it seems like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, right? There's a lot of the teams that have been doing it for the last couple of years have showed why they're, still at the top. My number one right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you gotta love what they did. They came in, solidified the offensive line. You think about how far the Steelers got on the makeshift line they had last year. I mean, they were pretty banged up. I mean, now they brought in Dave DeCastro to join Pouncey. They also have a left tackle in Mike Adams, and then they got Steelers love linebackers, and they usually are never wrong with the linebacker in the draft. They do their homework, and then they short it up with Alameda Tamu, if I'm saying it correctly. There you go, Canes. And then also they got Chris Rainey. But overall, I appreciate teams that do their homework and get some solid picks.
Yeah.
So that was my number one. Who's yours?
Number one, I'm going to stay in the same division. I'm going to go with the Bengals. I really like what the Bengals did. Kirkpatrick with their first pick shores up a need in the secondary. He's a high caliber cornerback. I know he's coming off a couple shoulder injuries, but obviously checked out okay at the combine. They had their doctors looking at him, of course, and he's a big hitter, very physical. That's what you need in that division. He can cover as well, so that's a solid pick. Zeitler with their first pick in the first round, I should say, their second pick in the first round. Zeitler, offensive guard, is going to come in and help out that run game. Just by blocking. I know that they need some backs to come in and fill the role of Benson, but I like that pick a lot. And then to get a guy like Devon Still from Penn State, the defensive tackle in round 2, who many thought might be gone in round 1, was a solid pick. They got just talent up and down from, all their picks. 10 selections, Sanu in the 3rd round, Thompson in the 3rd round. Orson Charles was a guy who, despite a DUI, as a late round pick, there's not as much risk there. And, he's a tight end that can come in and add a weapon in the passing game, give the red rifle somebody else to look at and throw to. Jones from Cal, he's a good receiver. They really did well. All the way to the 6th round, they loaded up on not only guys that can come in and start, but they also got some good depth and some backup players. And I think that they got a lot of good players in this draft. I give the Bengals an A+ for what they did this weekend. Who's your number 2?
Number 2 is the New England Patriots. A team that usually comes into every draft every year, basically controlling the draft. They do what they want to do. They stockpile picks, move down, move up. Usually move down, but this year you see them move up and get, they get Chandler Jones. I mean, he could be a monstrous pick in the future. Comes from his brother, actually, is a fighter. I mean, he comes from a family of fighters. So Chandler Jones could be a beast.
Yeah, and his oldest brother plays for the Ravens.
Yeah,
they got 2 NFL
family right
yeah,
there.
For sure.
Donta Hightower, I know you were high on him going to the Broncos, and the Broncos could have had him. They actually traded out of that pick, and you're looking at the first 7 picks. New England Patriots won defense, and if it's something they've learned from last year is they got to solidify that defense. And for having a shaky defense, I'm not going to say bad, but a shaky defense throughout last season, and now trying to shore that up. If they get some players out of this draft, it could be wonders.
Yeah, I have the Patriots in at number 2 as well. I have them tied with the team I'm going to mention in a little bit, but I for everything you just said, and honestly, after their first round, it was a lock for me. to get the edge rusher that they needed in Jones. I know he's a little bit raw, but like we had said, he's got tons of talent in the family, and obviously they're hard workers. They know what it takes to be world-class athletes and champions like Bones Jones. And Hightower in the middle. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl player, and he's going to add an attitude to that defense that they really haven't had in a while. They haven't had that Teddy Bruschi leadership, and Hightower was a 2-year captain for Nick Saban, so obviously he has leadership qualities. He's been there, done that, played for the best team in the country and the toughest division in the country in the SEC. So just after the first round, I said the Patriots had a great draft. Everything from here on in is gravy. And like you said, they got some depth on the defense, and they did wonderful and trying to solidify that. They took a couple of risks. There were some guys, Wilson from Illinois in the second round. A lot of people said that was a reach, but I'm not going to question Bill Belichick. He's got more rings on his finger than I do or ever will have. So he obviously knows he fits what he's trying to do defensively. So I like the Patriots. I think they did really, really well, and I think Hightower is going to be the gem of that draft. And if Bones Jones' little brother comes in and even gets some kind of pass rush, then Chandler will definitely help them as well. So that's what they need. Who do you got at number 3?
Number 3, I'd have to say the Philadelphia Eagles.
Kind of saw that coming.
Well, hey, just keeping it real, guy. I really love the Fletcher Cox. So, I mean, that pick is the one that I called. I think when you have the wide 9 and the holes that it had last season, you got a guy like Fletcher Cox, who's one of the best DTs at shooting gaps, pretty versatile player, and then come back with a second-round pick with Michael Kendricks, who is a phenomenal linebacker. Behind Kuechly, he was the next guy that was, he plays downhill. It worked wonders for the 4-3 defense with the Eagles, and then he's a great tackler. And then you come back with Vinny Curry in the second round as well, another defensive end who loves to rush the passer. And then even the Nick Foles pick is a little shaky, but someone's got to back up Michael Vick, and the Eagles love to develop quarterbacks. Brandon Boykin, another guy.
Huge value.
A lot of people were seeing him in the first round, second round, but to get him in the fourth round, it's a pretty solid pick. He could play the slot. You could see him playing the slot. I think it's just those are some solid picks that, when hopefully these guys get on the field early. But if I had a 3B, I'd go with the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, great segue! Great segue.
Because I feel like they've changed. They've if they're gonna go big, it's go big or go home. You get your quarterback Whedon.
All right, hey, ho, easy guy. This is my number 3 team here,
sorry,
and you're just kind of stealing all my thunder here.
Finish up, but I just want to commend them for taking take them out of the past and bring them into the future. Richardson, big deal right there.
There you have it. Trent Richardson. I know they did move up, and they gave away 3 draft picks to do it. And at the time, it was like, what? At first, I thought they just traded draft positions. Like, they went from where they were in the 4th round and swapped. But they actually traded out the picks. They had the picks to give, but they were a little anxious to get this guy. And he's going to be the bell cow for that offense. He's going to make everything click. And believe it or not, I know a lot of people were questionable about his age and this and that and the other, but I'm talking about Whedon. Okay, Brandon Whedon, in my opinion, is going to be one of the better quarterbacks to come out of this draft because the way he is accurate with the football. If you watch his highlights, he hits guys on the money, on stride. He drops it in the bucket, that back shoulder fade, back end of the pylon, hitting guys on the skinny post or the deep seam.
Hey, skinny post.
Hey, he just puts it where it needs to be.
Right.
And okay, he's 28 years old. Big deal. If you get a quarterback that can stay healthy and play for you for 8 to 10 years at a high level, that's a great pick. You know, no one's saying he's got to play for 12 years for him to be considered a success. If you can get 8 to 10 years out of him and he's, 37, 38 years old, look at the Denver Broncos. They just signed Peyton Manning, who's 36, coming off 4 neck surgeries, and, they just signed him to a multi-year deal. So it's a passing league. You need guys that can throw the rock. I really like that pick. Then they went and they addressed the trenches. They got Schwartz in the second round. They came back with Hughes, a defensive tackle from Cincinnati, in the third round. And I really like the Travis Benjamin pick. Not just because he's from the U, but because he's got blazing speed. And that's what they need to stretch the defense. If you have to worry about keeping a safety back because you got a 4-3 or high 4-2 guy running out of the slot, straight down the middle of the field, that's going to open up holes for Richardson. And I really see this team handing the ball off a lot, playing pound, ground and pound style football. And when you're facing the Ravens and you're facing the Steelers and you're facing the Bengals, those are great running defenses. And when you have 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3 and you have to pass the ball because you don't have a running back that can pick up those short yards, that puts you at a huge disadvantage. Now you got a guy like Richardson. You could run the ball on 3rd and 4 with a guy like him if he pans out to be the player that we all think he's going to be.
You see how many piles he moves?
He's just a beast, and he's fast. 4.4 speed. He can bounce it to the outside as well. He's going to keep teams very, very honest. And I just think it's a great move. I think you see Holmgren is changing the dynamic of the Cleveland Browns. I think he's starting to turn this team into what he sees as a winning franchise. He's building them from not only skill positions, but also from the interior in the trenches. They got the right guard, or right side of the offensive line they needed. Joe Thomas is going to be solid. They got a speed receiver. They got a bell cow running back. I really like the Browns. And now if I have a 3B, if you will, my next team up, I'd have to say it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I really like what the Buccaneers did to go and get, Mark Barron, who's a rangy safety. He can hit. He can play downhill. He can be that extra guy in the box if you need to. And then to come back and get Doug Martin. I'm not 100% sold on Martin as everybody else is, but I'll listen to the people that know a little bit more than I do. They all think he's going to be great. I talked to Jamal Anderson about it. He said he's not all that goo-goo over him. He wasn't extremely overly impressed with him as a running back, but we got to see what they do. He's going to split carries probably with LeGarrette Blount, who's got a tendency to fumble every now and then, and Martin kind of maybe will give you that steady running back out of the backfield. So I like what they do.
To be the third 3-down back. They're hoping.
Right. And look at all the moves that they brought in already, though, Gil. I mean, they've got an offensive line right now that has 3 Pro Bowlers on it. You got Penn on the outside. They just went and got, that guy from the Saints. They've got some studs up front. They went and got, Vincent Jackson. They added some key pieces in the secondary. I really like what they're doing in Tampa Bay, and I wouldn't be surprised if Schiano has a really good rookie season down there and turns it around. It's a tough division, but they're headed in the right direction.
Schiano has a strong personality. I think you see what he did up here in Rutgers. I'm right close to Rutgers, and seeing what he did with that program, and he changed the mindset. I mean, you got people. Rutgers shirts, Rutgers jerseys. It's pretty crazy. I think it all has something to do with Schiano.
Oh, for sure.
So, losers.
Flip side of the coin. Time to talk about the guys who swing and a miss.
So, my number one...
Let's start with your number 3 and work our way to the biggest loser. to quote a famous show. Who do you think had a bad draft but wasn't the worst? Let's start there. Number 3.
I mean, number 3, I was ready. I was all juiced up to go. I mean, all right. I'll go with Raiders. When your first round draft pick is Carson Palmer, it's not really much to get excited about. And this is almost 2 drafts in a row where you're seeing. I mean, there's got to be a point in time where you have to stop doing the things that you've done in the past. You have to build through the draft. The Raiders, last couple of years, their draft's been like, 3 players, 4 players here and there, and then come back this year and tell me that Carson Palmer is your first-round draft selection. I mean, you gave up a lot for him.
And they got Murphy. That was a good sneaky pick.
I'm just saying it's nothing. I mean, they got a tackle in the third round. That was their first pick of the draft. So I mean, I'm just overall looking at
Right. No, I'm right there with you. That's my three. That's my third worst is the Raiders, just because of the lack of picks, and I can't blame this year's team. And what I mean by that is I can't blame the front office because they inherited this mess. Right. They didn't make all these trades, and obviously Reggie McKenzie knows what he's doing. He was a class act up in Green Bay for the Packers for a while. He knows what he wants to do. He just has to wait a little bit for the sludge to work its way out. But the Raiders have talent, and they do have a talented team. If they can get all those pieces together, it will work. But like you said, trading the house for Carson Palmer isn't exactly something that makes you all goo goo gaga over it. And they didn't have enough picks to really make any presence in this draft. So just from that alone, they're the third worst team. Who's your second to last, bringing up the ranks?
I'm gonna go with the. I wasn't too crazy about the Jets draft. I just think when you take two guys who are, they have some red flags, as Copels. It was their first pick, and at 16, you want to make sure you're pretty solid on the pick. It was kind of questionable. His consistency was often questioned, and then you follow that up with Stephen Hill, who comes from Georgia Tech, an offense who's they don't really pass the ball that much. But the one key thing about Stephen Hill that I do like, he's a good blocker. So the Jets want to morph their offense into a mashing type of run offense, run oriented. So if that's the reason why you get Stephen Hill, he's a deep threat, but can he run crisp routes? I'm not sure. He's a big target, but I'm just saying for your first and second pick, I think you got to be pretty rock solid, and I think those had some little flags, but hey, we'll see.
And they kind of had some desperation. I agree with you, because they need a pass rusher. They can't always rely on these exotic blitz schemes. And I think the key with Stephen Hill is if Tim Tebow ends up being their quarterback, can you catch balls off your shoelaces? I mean, that's what you get. Those are the drills you got to run with him. Can you pick them up off your feet? Because that's where they'll be most of the time.
Hey, Rex Ryan said Sanchez and Tebow look awesome in camp right now.
Of course, Rex Ryan says everybody looks awesome. Every year he's ready to win the Super Bowl.
Just wanted to add that in there.
All right. I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints had a horrible draft, and only because they gave up, Mark Ingram from the year before, got rid of their first-round pick, but they really didn't make any impact. I didn't see anyone come across the board that the Saints picked that made me go, oh, wow, the Saints got a baller. And now that could prove me wrong. I mean, these guys have yet to play yet, and you don't know how they're going to turn out, but I just think the Saints reached when they were on the clock, and they didn't really, it kind of made me scratch my head, like when the Jaguars took a punter in the third round. It's just like, what are you doing, But at the end of the day, if they see a player that fits their scheme, so be it. I just think right now, the only thing the Saints have going for them right now is to sign Drew Brees. If they don't, it's going to be a terrible offseason, and that's going to linger into the regular season. They've had more dark clouds over them. You thought they would try to make an impact in the draft. They didn't. Fans got to be a little restless.
Well, also one thing just to add is that they haven't dropped the hammer on who's going to get suspended or...
Exactly.
But they did pretty well getting two linebackers in Hawthorne and Lofton. That was pretty... Yeah, for not having a real...
And Broderick Bunkley in free agency, he played well for Denver last year.
That's not bad for, bringing those three, talented cats to your defense.
Yeah, but they did lose Nix.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. And Porter, he's in Denver. So they lost some pieces, too. They gained some, but they lost some. So we'll call it a push. Anyway, who is the worst draft team in the 2012 NFL Draft? Who gets the big stinker award?
I don't really want to throw some salt on your Denver Broncos, but I just,
Hey,
if you're gonna give some credit to the off-season winners, Denver Broncos, you land Peyton Manning, you are the winner for the next 5 years in free agency pickup. So right there,
Soaking it in.
You get the soul clap for that one. But for the draft, talking about giving your man some weapons here, your second round pick. There's some guys and some other DTs that were. I mean, I would have gave Peyton Manning some weapons first, and then hit up DTs. But they got Derek Wolfe. There were some other guys on the board that could have been had, but they went with Wolfe. We'll see. And then they went with Brock Osweiler, like in the second round. And I don't know if he was. They just were like, we need to get somebody to back up Manning, but who's going to really learn from Manning? His offense is up here. Like, you either got to watch and really, I don't know, pray to learn, to follow. I mean, anyone who's followed Peyton Manning hasn't really done much. So, just overall, I just think, they brought in Hillman. I do like Omar Bolden.
Yeah, he's good too.
If he becomes a player, getting him in the fourth could be interesting.
I like Hillman. I think Hillman was their best pick. He broke all Marshall Faulk records. He's only 5'8", but man, with the ball in his hand, he's dangerous. I mean, I saw him they were backed up on one of their plays. It was like, 1st and 10 on the 1 yard line. He broke at 99 yards, breaking tackles. He's very Darren Sproles. If you could take a combination of two players, and I know this is extremely high praise, we have to wait and see, but he's very Darren Sproles, LaShawn McCoy-esque. He's got the hips and the fluidity of McCoy, but he's got the size and the stature of Sproles. But I agree, to get back to the first two picks with the Broncos, Derek Wolfe was the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. It's like saying you're the smartest kid on the short bus. We'll put it like that. So that's not a tough division. He was recruited as an offensive lineman. That's where he started. He's slow, according to scouting reports, but he's got a high motor. Maybe that's what the Broncos wanted, was somebody that really, would go to get after it and play 4 quarters, because defensive tackles tend to get worn out as the game goes on, and if he showed that, maybe that's the reasoning for taking him. He is a run stuffer as well, and he's big, 6'5", 300 pounds. Now, as far as the Osweiler pick, to me, this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And if you're talking about grooming a quarterback, I ask any Bronco fan, what quarterback was groomed under Peyton Manning? How did Painter do? How did Sorgi do? How did any quarterback behind Peyton Manning do? Not very well. And it's not necessarily the player, because I like what Osweiler brings to the table. He's big and he's got a strong arm. He has a little shoddy footwork and his accuracy is in question. But why in the second round? Kirk Cousins was taken in the 4th round, who in many scouts' opinion has a better upside in the NFL than Osweiler does.
They said Cousins made some bad decisions and
that's why he's in the 4th round. And if he's got 3 or 4 years to learn, here's the thing. You signed Peyton Manning to a 5-year deal. Your rookie quarterback signed a 4-year deal. So essentially you took a second-round pick to never play. Now, you're going to tell me that an NFL agent is going to say, okay, let's go ahead and re-sign with this team so you can wait 1 more year, and then you'll be the starter. And then the agent's going to say to the Broncos, we want starter money, and the Broncos are going to say, this is business. He hasn't proven anything to get starter money. He's not going to get it. And then he's going to start getting itchy. Hey, I'm 27, 28 years old now. I still haven't played a game yet, unless Manning goes down.
Hey, you never know, man.
You don't know, but to me, it's not the player, it's when you took the player. They could have added, a guy like Tremaine Johnson to play corner and maybe move him to safety. He's big, he's rangy, the kid from Montana. There was still a ton of talent on the board at that time, and they could have waited to take a backup quarterback later or groom someone later. And maybe even Osweiler would have been there in the 3rd round or later if they wanted to trade up and get him. They traded up to get Hillman. Why couldn't they trade up to get the quarterback they wanted? To me, it just makes no sense. But I understand the need for a quarterback to be ready if someone goes down. But if you're going to tell me if Manning goes down and Osweiler's going to step in and take you to the promised land, really? A rookie that has holes in his game? Come on.
I mean, in the second round, you grab a guy in the second round, you're saying he's got potential. backup QB in him.
We'll see. All right, now my worst draft team.
What's your worst draft? I thought Broncos were your worst.
No, Broncos aren't my worst. Broncos are like they're like a 3B. I got to go with the Miami Dolphins. I'm sorry, but the Miami Dolphins really struck out, in my opinion. They need a quarterback, so they say. I disagree. Matt Moore did not have an offseason because of the lockout. When he did get a chance to start working with the team, he was getting second-team reps because Henne was taking all the first-team reps. Now, he comes in when they were 0-7 or 0-8, whatever they went, and he wins 6 out of the last 8, 6 out of the last 9 games. He won ball games over a course of a season. That proves he's a winner. You take away Brandon Marshall, okay? They have no other pass rush than Cameron Wake, and then they move up, and they stay where they are. In the 8th pick, they take a guy who was a wide receiver for his first 2 years in college. In 19 starts, he was around 500. If you're going to take a guy in the top 10 at quarterback, and you're going to say he's your franchise guy, he better be dynamic. He better be lights out, ready to run the show type quarterback, not a guy that you think you need to groom for a little while. He might not even beat out David Garrard or Matt Moore come camp. And then who's he going to throw it to? They didn't address wide receiver until the 6th round when they took B.J. Cunningham. You got Devon Best, Hartline, and Cunningham.
Fasano.
And Fasano. Okay, he's a good tight end. But this offense wasn't prolific to begin with. They weren't 0-7 and didn't lose the first half of the season because they were good, even when they had talent. They let Jeremiah Bell go. Langston is gone. Who's their pass rush? Cameron Wake's going to get double teamed. Tom Brady's going to pick them apart. The Jets will beat them. The Bills will beat them. To me, they should have taken defense and tried to get a quarterback later and let Tannehill go. Because next year, when the Dolphins are picking in the top 5 again, they're going to be eyeballing Matt Barkley, and they're handcuffed. They can't take a quarterback. They'll be looking for the best receiver, this, that, and the other. Then they come back and they take an offensive lineman who's a left tackle. They already got a left tackle. What are you going to do with Jonathan Martin? That's who they took, right? Jonathan Martin?
Who did they pick? I'm going to say they went with, Jonathan Martin.
So,
well, maybe he goes right side.
But he's not a masher. He's a finesse guy. He's not tough.
Well, what do you think about, sometimes, I agree, when you go 8, you can't be like, hey, we're going to nurse you on the bench. No, there's just too much money involved here. You got to be a starter from day one. Mike Sherman coached him at Texas A&M. So, I feel like if it was any system for him to go to, I think it's the right fit in the sense where he's got people that are familiar with his game. In defense, he did have 19 starts at quarterback, but also look at Cam Newton, who had didn't he have 13 starts at quarterback?
Well, because he transferred and had to wait when he left Florida and went to Auburn and all that business. But you can't compare the athletic ability and the cannon and not even in the same ballpark. Tannehill of every scout that I've talked to or read says that he's a project. He's not going to be ready to start in the NFL in week 1 in his first year. He just won't be. And I think at the 8th pick, that's what you need. When you have an opportunity to take an elite pass rusher, look, if you're going to beat Tom Brady like the Jets did with a rookie quarterback, the Jets did it. The Jets got Sanchez to the championship game through New England. They went into New England and beat them. They didn't do it by outgunning them. They did it by bringing them to the ground. Look at the Ravens when they went into New England and beat them. They did it by bringing them to the ground. Look at the 2 teams that beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, the Giants. They did it by bringing them to the ground. You've got to hit them, and you've got to hit them often. You're not going to win a shootout against Tom Brady. I don't care who you got. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe Drew Brees. Other than that, it's pressure, pressure, pressure. And I don't see the Dolphins having any pressure to offer. They've got good corners. They just don't have guys that are getting to the quarterback in time.
And then they have a potential Wake in the contract.
He might hold out.
Yeah, so
We'll see.
Someone better play defensive ends.
You know, it's the Dolphin fans already are showing up in South Florida with bags on their heads. They're mad they didn't get Peyton Manning. They're mad they didn't get Jeff Fisher. They're mad they didn't get Matt Flynn. People are not coming to Miami for a reason. Free agents are not coming here for a reason. It's not because they don't like the color of the uniforms. It's not because South Beach isn't the greatest place to go hang out. It's not because South Florida's weather is awful. There's a reason. There's issues in the front office. Players don't want to play for this organization. The word is out across the NFL. Bottom line, now they're going to reach. Desperation is a stinky cologne, and the Dolphins got some rotten fish funk on them right now. Hate to say it, but they do.
Hey, desperation. That sounds like a great cologne, man.
But I'm telling you, the only pick I like is Lamar Miller in the 4th round.
I know you're
He's going to
big
be
on, and he's a Kane, man. It's been a long time since the who was the last guy? Vernon Carey was the last guy that they drafted. The Kane.
And honestly, I think guys from Miami need to get out of Miami. When you're down there, you've got all your friends, all your buddies, all your family. It's hard. It's hard to focus. It's hard to concentrate when everybody's saying, "Hey, let's go do this. Let's go do that." You know,
it's hard out there for a pimp, you know.
But if you look at let's talk Hurricanes for 2 seconds. I had a conversation the other day with a guy who made a great point about the Hurricanes. All the great Hurricanes weren't from Miami. Warren Sapp was from Apopka, which is just outside of Orlando. Ed Reed is from Louisiana. Clinton Portis was outside of Jacksonville, or Gainesville, excuse me. All of them. Reggie Wayne. None of these guys were from Miami. The guys that came from Miami that stayed there, like Ja'Cory Harris, distractions, distractions, distractions. And I just worry about the Dolphins players that went to the U and stay in Miami. I mean, I hope it works out for them. I really think Lamar Miller, home run hitter, great speed. But I just don't see anything in the passing game that's going to scare teams at all. And they're going to see 8 and 9 in the box all day long. Good luck. Good luck, Jake Long. better bring your lunchbox. It's going to be a long day at work. That's all I got to say about that.
Wrapped it up in a tiny little bow.
That's right.
Matt Moore, 2012.
I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. I really don't.
I think he did a lot for getting little time, and he was even fantasy football worthy. We're talking Matt Moore here. So big hats off to him, and he was getting his rush yards. So Matt Moore's a fighter. He did it in Carolina. Hopefully he does it this year. So
we shall see. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to Skinny Post TV. As always, it's great talking a little football with everybody. Please leave a comment. Check us out on Twitter. That's Gail E. Saunders, at Gail E. Saunders, and I'm at Steve O'Reilly. You can talk to us on Twitter. We're always willing to continue the football conversation there. Be sure to check us out. Please leave a comment under the YouTube channel or on skinnypost.com. For Gail Saunders, I'm Steve O'Reilly. As always, we're giving you the skinny 24/7.
Living the dream.